Chapter 301, Scarlet Eyes. At this moment, a huge lightning bolt struck from the sky. The Ant King had no time to evade and he was swallowed by lightning. The already damaged body of the Ant King became even more damaged as he spat a mouthful of purple blood. This was the second time he was forced to spit blood. The lightning strike was very painful, but the Ant King's willpower was amazing. Even with that much pain he gritted his teeth and endured without a scream. He wanted to kill Allan desperately. However, right now, the Ant King couldn't sense or see Allan at all. His mind was a mess, and if he calmed down for a bit, he would be able to find Allan, but with his current injuries and anger, he can no longer calm down. At this time, Allan was inside the thunder cloud, feeding it and making it bigger. Wouch! As soon as the first lightning bolt fell from the sky, the thunder cloud started raining lightning toward the Ant King without stopping. The valley became a mess as everything was destroyed with large pits covering the ground. Did he die? Allan narrowed his eyes slightly. The last attack consumed a lot of his energy. The continuous lightning strikes were several times stronger than Netero's 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva. Even the Ant King won't be safe from this attack. What's more, the Ant King is already injured. Even if he doesn't die, the battle will end soon. There! Allan saw the Ant King, who although standing, was scorched all over. Moreover, his aura was much weaker than before. He was obviously greatly weakened. Allan believed that the Ant King won't survive another powerful attack. However, considering the power he already consumed, Allan won't be able to use an attack of that scale anymore. Allan's stamina was limited, and it was impossible for him to use powerful attacks one after another using his devil fruits. Since he couldn't use them, Allan decided to use other abilities to deal with the Ant King. There are still abilities that Allan didn't use which were powerful enough to kill the Ant King. For example, he had Star Platinum, his swordsmanship, etc. However, Allan didn't intend to use any of those. He wanted to use the Ryuudan. The Ant King never thought he would ever be forced into such a state by a mere human. Although he didn't want to admit it, the Ant King knew that he can't win against Allan. At this moment, the Ant King saw Allan slowly walking toward him. The Ant King wanted to kill this human, but due to his injuries, he had no chance to do it. Allan moved slowly as he stared at the Ant King with his currently dark eyes. The Ant King didn't want to be outdone, so he stared back at Allan. However, in the next second, the Ant King saw Allan's eyes transform. What's wrong with his eyes? The Ant King frowned. Relying on his instinct, he knew that those eyes were dangerous. The Ryuudan Allan possessed belonged to Uchiha Itachi. With Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu, as well as Susanoo, those Ryuudan eyes were almost invincible. At this moment, the Ant King who was staring at Allan's eyes was caught by Tsukuyomi. He suddenly found himself in a weird place. The sky was red and everything else was in black and white. Where is this? The Ant King frowned. Chapter 302, Spiritual Attack. Inside this space, time moved extremely slowly. The Ant King frowned. His instincts made him feel that this world wasn't real. This world didn't have any aura of life, as if it is a dead space. As for how he appeared here, the Ant King already guessed that. Is it those eyes? Was I hypnotized? The Ant King thought. When he saw the pair of scarlet eyes, he could feel something bad about them. Miru-em, welcome to my Tsukuyomi's world. A voice suddenly rang in the space. The Ant King concentrated in front of him and saw Allan. Ant King, I created this world, everything here is under my command, Allan said. Apparently, the Ant King didn't believe him. You don't believe me? Well, let me prove it. The next second, the Ant King found himself tied to a pillar with his body locked in chains. Even with his strength, he couldn't break free. This made him panic slightly since he didn't seem to have his great power here. In the Tsukuyomi world, everything is under the control of the caster, and the victim would be put in great mental suffering. Now, the Ant King was in Allan's hands, and at his disposal. Unless the mental power of the Ant King is strong enough to break the Tsukuyomi, he will suffer. A shining sword appeared in Allan's hand. He walked toward the Ant King and said, Miru-em, in the next 72 hours, you will be slashed by my sword without retaliating. I wonder if you can hold on when I'm finished. A chilling smile appeared on Allan's face while the Ant King was getting scared. He felt himself facing great evil. Allan directly inserted the sword into the Ant King's body. The shining blade went through the Ant King's body and purple blood flowed out. The Ant King couldn't believe that a mere ordinary sword was able to pierce his body. He was most proud of his body's defense, and now, his body was actually pierced by a sword. The Ant King finally understood that he is inside an illusion created by Allan. That's the only reason an ordinary sword could penetrate his defense. However, despite figuring this out, the feeling he got was real. He felt himself being stabbed. 72 hours in the Tsukuyomi world was just a second outside. By the time the illusion came to an end, the Ant King was on his knees. The spiritual attack was effective. Coupled with his damaged body, the Ant King was experiencing mental and physical pain. Let me end this right now with the strongest sword. Allan walked in front of the Ant King. The Ant King raised his head and looked at Allan and the black sword in his hand. This is the reward Allan obtained before, the Seijo o Wazamano series sword, the strongest sword in existence, Yoru. Allan looked at him and said, Miru, I will use the strongest sword in the world to kill you, you should feel honored. The Ant King didn't say anything, he kept his eyes on the sword in Allan's hand. He felt a terrifying aura from the sword, and for the first time in his short life, the Ant King felt death. Allan noticed the look on the Ant King's face and smiled slightly. So, Yoru can kill the Ant King after all. Chapter 303, Self-Destruct. As Allan's voice fell, he gripped the handle of Yoru tightly before violently swinging it. Boom! An azure flying slash moved straight toward the Ant King. The power behind the slash can't be described. Facing the powerful slash, the heavily injured Ant King couldn't dodge in time. The Ant King could only stand in front of the slash with his hand in front of him, trying to block the slash. A huge explosion occurred as soon as the flying slash hit the Ant King. Violent shockwaves smashed the boulders in the valley one after the other before subsiding. A huge pit appeared on the ground and inside it, the Ant King was lying. A huge wound appeared on his body and purple blood dripped out on the ground. Seeing the Ant King's current state, Allan said, You're really a monster, you're still alive after that. The Ant King stared at Allan gloomily without speaking. The Ant King felt his life was coming to an end. He was surprised when the wound caused by this slash wouldn't heal. No, it's not that he can't heal it, but the healing rate was too slow. The bleeding was too fast for him to heal. If this continued for 10 minutes, he would lose his life. The Ant King was aware he can't survive today, so, he raised his head and stared at Allan. A black aura appeared around the Ant King as he roared, You're just a mere human, don't be so proud, even if die today, I will kill you. Hearing this, Allan's expression changed as he thought, this guy wants to blow himself up. Allan quickly realized that the Ant King was released a death-like aura. He immediately realized that the Ant King was compressing all of his remaining power to blow himself and die with Allan. As the king of the Chimera Ants, he couldn't tolerate a loss even if it costs him his life. So dying together with his enemy can be considered okay. Seeing the crazy look on the Ant King's face, Allan frowned. Although the Ant King was on his last breath, if he blows up, the energy released will be terrifying. Allan couldn't guarantee his survival from the explosion, so he couldn't afford to gamble. Allan's first thought was to run. As soon as Allan ran at his fastest speed, the Ant King blew himself up. Boom! The energy in the Ant King's body erupted in an instant. A huge mushroom cloud appeared over the valley. The Ant King blew himself up. The explosion was comparable to a nuclear bomb. Outside the valley, Netero stared solemnly at the mushroom cloud and thought, that's really a terrifying explosion. Netero was watching the battle between Allan and the Ant King, but because of the intensity and danger, he had to temporarily retreat and couldn't see everything that happened. Therefore, he didn't know who caused that explosion. Was it Allan or the Ant King? Netero thought. Netero didn't dare approach the explosion, just the shockwave generated by it was enough to destroy mountains. Even several kilometers away, he could feel the terrifying energy released in that explosion. At the palace, Kite, Gon, and Morel also heard the explosion. They all looked toward the valley dozens of kilometers away and saw the huge mushroom in the sky. It should have been dark outside, but because of the explosions, the night sky was bright. What happened over there? Morel frowned. Let's go take a look, Kite said. Afterward, Kite, Gon, Killua, and the others grouped up and went toward the valley. Poof, who was previously fighting them, also noticed the explosion from the valley. King! Poof shouted and flew toward the valley as fast as possible. Chapter 304, Blown. After the explosion, the entire valley was devastated. The mountains and forest around were burnt down, making it appear like a sea of flames. The dark sky was illuminated by the fire, painting a sunset-like picture. After half an hour, Kite, Gon, Killua, and Morel arrived outside the valley. On a big rock, everyone saw Netero. Netero was sitting on the rock watching the fire burn. Although he wanted to go in and look at the situation, the fire was too strong, so he could only wait temporarily. "Chairman!" Morel shouted from below. "Oh, it's you guys." Netero jumped down from the boulder and glanced at everyone before nodding in relief. Although Killua, Shoot, and Morel were injured, these injuries weren't threatening. After a few seconds, Kite finally asked on behalf of everyone, "Chairman, what happened here? Why did the valley explode? Weren't you fighting the Ant King?" Gon then added, "What happened to Allan? Where is he?" Seeing everyone eager to know what happened here, Netero briefly recounted the story. Now, everyone understood that this explosion was caused by Allan and the Ant King's battle. Netero was forced to retreat after he lost to the Ant King and couldn't withstand the aftermath of their fight. He also mentioned that he didn't know who caused this explosion. As for whether Allan and the Ant King were alive or dead, it was unknown for now. "I'm going in." Gon stood up as he said. Having been waiting outside for a long time, he was really worried about Allan. Killua put a hand on Gon's shoulder and shook his head. "Don't, Gon, the fire is too much for anyone to enter for now." "Yes, Gon, let's wait for a bit till the fire stops," Kite also advised. "But we don't know whether Allan is alive or dead. What if he is still alive but too injured and would die if we don't help him?" Gon said with worry and anxiety. Everyone was actually worried, but the fire was really too fierce. Even from a distance, they felt the heat. Gon finally gave up his plan to rush into the fire since he understood that he won't be able to step out after going in. "Don't worry Gon, Allan should be fine," Kite said. Kite wasn't really trying to comfort Gon since he actually believed his own words. Gon nodded and could only wait for the fire to die out before he enters the valley. Suddenly, a chill passed through the valley. The raging flame died out and the entire valley was frozen. Within 10 seconds, the flaming hell turned into a frozen hell. Seeing this, Kite, Gon, and the others opened their eyes widely in surprise. Netero said, "The flames were extinguished and this ice should be Allan's ability, it seems like he is fine." Not long after, a figure flew out of the valley. "Allan, are you okay?" Gon was the first to rush up in concern. "Well, yeah, I'm alright." Allan smiled. He glanced around and saw everyone, he nodded at them and said hello. "Allan, what happened to the Ant King?" Netero asked loudly. "What does Chairman think?" Allan's meaning was obvious. Netero said, "Well, since you are the only one coming out, it means that you already killed him." Allan nodded, "Well, yes, he is indeed dead." "How did he die?" Kite asked. "Blown," Allan replied. "Blown?" Everyone there was shocked. Allan explained, "I fought with him and seriously injured him, so, in desperation, he wanted to take me down with him and blew himself up." Thinking about the power behind the explosion, Allan felt lucky, since he, fortunately, ran fast or else. What a tragic way to die, for a powerful enemy like the Ant King to blow himself up, it was really tragic. But they were more shocked that Allan actually won against the Ant King, who even Netero could beat. This shows that Allan's power has already surpassed Chairman Netero. Chapter 305, Achievement. Since Allan dealt with the Ant King, the others were relieved. In particular, Netero praised Allan more than anyone and gave him a thumb up. He even promised Allan that he would give him the Triple Star Hunter's title after returning to the Hunter Association's headquarters. When the others heard this, they cast an envious look at Allan, well, everyone beside Gon and Killua. Because the two of them don't understand the meaning and weight behind that title. Triple Star Hunter is a symbol of the highest status that a hunter can get. Only hunters with great contributions can get this reward. Allan killed the Ant King by himself and avoided a great crisis for mankind. Besides that, Allan already killed 3 royal guards when the extermination team was formed. He even used a senzu bin to make Netero recover. The sum of those credits was more than enough. Of course, just killing the Ant King already qualified Allan for that title. After all, Netero fought against the Ant King, and even though the latter was a few months old, he was strong enough to defeat his strongest move. If they gave him some time to grow, it was hard to imagine the extent of strength he would reach. Therefore, killing the Ant King alone was enough for the Triple Star Hunter's title. As the highest person of the Hunter Association, Netero was a Triple Star Hunter himself. Amongst the whole association, only a few had this title, and right now, Allan was one of them. This meant that Allan's future status was equal to Netero's. Kite and Morel were hunters way before Allan, but even till now, they were still one-star hunters. Allan was already a double-star hunter and soon he will become a triple-star hunter. Such a fast upgrade made them feel envious and embarrassed. Allan was not too surprised or happy. He smiled and said, Now, this isn't completely over yet. Although the Ant King is dead, what happened to the royal guards? If we don't take care of them, it will bring trouble later. Kite seriously said, You killed one previously, I joined hands with Knuckle and Shoot to kill another one, and the remaining one was a bit special, so Morel, Gon, Killua, and Menshi couldn't deal with him and he escaped. Shipoff, right? Allan asked. Killua nodded and replied, Yes, unfortunately, he escaped and it isn't easy to find him. Previously, Killua relied on his god speed to match Shipoff's speed. Just now, when the explosion occurred, Shipoff saw that Killua was distracted and escaped without a trace. Now, they didn't know Shipoff's location. Allan pondered for a bit. Shipoff is a royal guard. After he escaped, he probably went to find the Ant King. Let's wait for a bit here, he will definitively come. He probably will panic and come to ask about the king's whereabouts. Gon said, When he comes to ask, we will kill him, right? Yes. Allan nodded. Everyone sat on the ground waiting for Shipoff while resting. The most injured among them were Knuckle and Shoot, then comes Morel, Kite, Gon, and Menshi. Killua didn't suffer any harm, because he relied on his god speed and could dodge most attacks. However, in such battles, stamina will be greatly consumed and everyone needed some time to recover. To use god speed, Killua needed to convert into an electric current, as well as charge himself with electricity beforehand. Only after a full rest would Killua be able to use god speed again, or he needed to be charged. Allan knew about this so he directly activated his fruit ability and charged Killua with an electric current. After being charged, Killua thanked Allan for his help. Allan waved his hand and said, It's just a small matter. Killua once again entered god speed and said, Then, I will go into the valley and look for Shipoff. If you find him, lead him here and I will deal with him, Allan said. Okay, I'm going. In the next second, Killua disappeared. After Killua entered the valley, Netero came to Allan and asked, Allan, how is your situation? It's okay, I'm good, Allan replied. In his battle with the Ant King, Allan didn't suffer any substantial damage, only his stamina was greatly consumed. Seeing Allan's fatigue, Netero said, You look tired, so go take a rest. If Killua finds Shipoff, this old man will deal with it. After taking that senzu bin, I'm the one who is most rested and brimming with energy. Allan nodded as he was confident that even though old, Netero could deal with Shipoff with no problem. Chapter 306, Shipoff's Resentment. A few minutes later, a figure flashed with blue light out of the valley. After Killua came out, a black figure chased after him. Allan's eyes were sharp, he noticed Shipoff chasing after Killua. Chairman, Killua brought Shipoff here. Allan reminded Netero, who turned his head to the side. Netero nodded as he noticed Shipoff flying over as well. He immediately became vigilant, after all, the royal guards were quite strong as well. Killua quickly rushed toward everyone and finally arrived at Allan's side. After seeing who was there, Shipoff realized that Killua was leading him here. But Shipoff didn't leave, instead, he rushed forward. Because he needed to know the situation of the Ant King and his whereabouts. There are only two people who knew about the situation with the Ant King, the first was Netero, and the second was Allan. Although Shipoff had a bad feeling that the king met an accident, he didn't believe that the king would be defeated. Shipoff stopped 10 meters away from Allan and the others. He stared at Allan and asked, Where is the king? Allan shrugged and asked back, What do you think? Shipoff suppressed his anger and asked again, I will ask one more time, where is the king? Answer me. Allan sneered and didn't want to play any more, so he replied, I'm sorry, I defeated the Ant King, and he is dead. What did you say? Hearing that the Ant King was killed, Shipuff's eyes widened with shock and disbelief. After a while, Shipuff couldn't believe this. No, it's impossible, how can you kill the king, you're lying. Shipuff seemed a little crazy. It's the truth, the king of the Chimera ants was killed by me, Allan said coldly. My king! Shipuff shouted loudly toward the sky. Suddenly, a monstrous killing intent spread in all directions. Shipuff's eyes were full of anger and killing intent. Both Gon and Killua were frightened by the killing intent and their hearts trembled. Kite, Morel and the others had serious expressions, ready to fight at any second. Only Netero and Allan were not that affected by the killing intent. Allan wasn't afraid even a little, even though Shipuff's killing intent was aimed at him. Shipuff was nothing compared to the Ant King after all. He just turned his head and glanced at Netero before saying, I will leave him to you, Chairman. Netero nodded, leave it to this old man. In the next second, Netero raised his hands in a praying gesture. T/N, it seems that the senzu bin restored his leg and hands, which wasn't mentioned before. A golden light bloomed behind Netero as his 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva appeared. Gon, Killua and everyone else there widened their eyes. It was the first time they saw Netero using the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva. Even Kite and Morel were shocked by the 100-type Guanyin Bodhisattva's appearance. Netero waved his palm and said, Ninty ninth hand. Countless giant hands fell on Shipuff one after the other. The speed of those attacks was close to the speed of sound, even the Ant King couldn't dodge this move, so Shipuff could only receive a beating. Under this Ninty ninth hand, Shipuff vomited blood and was seriously injured. Currently, there is not even a single part of his body that was intact, he was severely injured and the bones on his body were completely shattered. He couldn't even fly. However, he could still stand up, which was somewhat weird. Netero couldn't help sigh at this, as expected of a royal guard, he is also a monster. After attacking him with the 99th hand, he still managed to survive. Allan said, Chairman, you can use the 0 hand to finish him off. Oh, okay. Just when Netero was about to use the 0 hand, Shipuff suddenly released black-purple air. Is that a contract? Seeing the strange black aura around Shipuff's body, Netero's expression changed. A contract is a kind of non-usage, non reacts to the goal of an individual, and by placing some limitations, and vowing to abide by them, a non-user could gain immense power. At this moment, Shipuff was staring at Allan, which means that he is after him and his vow had something to do with Allan. Netero realized this and said to Allan, Allan, get out of here, this is troublesome. Allan noticed this as well, but he didn't flee, instead, he said, Chairman, let me handle this. Chapter 307, Amaterasu. Allan, what are you going to do? The contract he made is directed at you. Netero said. The contract Poof made was very strong, even Netero was helpless feeling it. Allan replied seriously, I will kill him before he could do anything. Such an of death would be difficult to deal with, Netero said. Allan reassured, don't worry, I have my ways. Just watch, Chairman. Netero didn't know what method Allan planned to use, but since he killed the Ant King, maybe he had a way to deal with this. In the next second, Netero noticed Allan's eyes turn scarlet with a special pattern in the middle. What kind of eyes are there? Why does it feel evil? Netero frowned when he saw Allan's Mangekyo Sharinon. Allan looked at Poof with his Mangekyo and said, Amaterasu. A black flame suddenly appeared on Poof's body. A black flame. Netero, Kite and everyone else was surprised by this. The black flame of Amaterasu was extremely hot and could destroy anything. It's a flame that will burn for 7 days and 7 nights. In theory, Amaterasu can burn everything, not just people. Poof tried to use his ability to split his body and get rid of the black flames, but when it split, the black flame was still stuck in each copy. A few minutes later, Poof was finally burned to ashes by the black flames of Amaterasu. Hi, it is done. Seeing Poof burned to ashes by Amaterasu, Allan sighed in relief. Everyone there couldn't believe what they saw, it took them a while to accept this. Allan, what kind of flame was that? It was powerful enough to wipe the malice and death energy from Poof. That's a special power in my Mangekyo Sharinon eyes, it's called Amaterasu, which is a black flame that can burn down everything, including on, or malice. Hearing this, Netero sighed, you're really too strong that I feel scared. Fortunately, you're on our side. Allan stretched out lazily and said, "Chairman, the matter is resolved, let's go back." Afterward, the group left this place and returned to the Hunter Association. After returning, Allan rested for 2 days to recover all the energy he spent. It took the other longer to recover, well except for Killua who was like a battery, all he needed was electricity and he would be like new. A few days after their recovery, Netero summoned Allan, Kite, along with everyone else that participated in the last battle and awarded them. Gon and Killua were now single-star hunters, and Morel became a double-star hunter, along with Kite, and Menchi. Knuckle and Shoot received the single-star hunter title as well. Allan was now a triple-star hunter, his status was equal to the 12 zodiacs, and even the vice-chairman, Pariston had to give him face now. Of course, when Allan was about to get his triple-star title, there was a vote in the 12 zodiacs, and half of them were against Allan becoming a triple-star hunter. Though, since Netero held the most authority, he overruled their objection and gave Allan that title. After becoming a triple-star hunter, Allan received a villa from the association that can be valued at 1 billion jenny. Allan was satisfied with the villa and remembered that when he started here, it was difficult for him to even dream about getting such a high status. He worked hard and gained his power through the system. At first it wasn't much, but as he progressed, he became stronger, and finally, he stood at the top of the world. After the Chimera Ant incident, Allan and Gon returned to their peaceful lives for a while. 2 days later, in his house, Allan called out the system. Before killing the Ant King, Allan received the system's reward, the God-level treasure chest. This should be the highest treasure chest in the system. Right now, Allan was about to open this chest and see what was hidden inside. Chapter 308, The Law of Space. Do you want to open the God-level treasure chest? Yes. Allan instantly responded. Ding! Congratulations host for opening the God-level treasure chest and getting, Dimensional Exchange System. Dimensional Exchange System? Allan was stunned. He already has a system, but he got another one? However, when he inquired, it seems that the two systems did not conflict. In simple terms, this dimensional exchange system is equivalent to a dimensional store, he could sell things and buy things from it. Allan can use his items or abilities to buy things in the store. The points were the virtual currency of the system. In this dimensional store, there were all kinds of products from all the worlds. For example, there are Sharingans, stands, Rokushiki, Haki, devil fruits, Zanpakuto, etc. But Allan had many of those abilities. So, those things didn't attract him much. When he continued to check what was inside the store, he was stunned. This is? Even the power of the laws are sold here. There is something called the space law for sale inside the store. According to the description, the space law had 4 basic abilities: teleportation, banishment, sealing, and severing. Moreover, after mastering the power of this law, new abilities will develop as you go on. In a sense, this power was equivalent to being a god. Allan naturally wanted this space law very much. After all, with his current abilities, he was nowhere near the power of a god. And if he masters the power of the space law, he would enter a new realm of power. However, the price of this law was 20 million points. Therefore, Allan must obtain those 20 million points first, and even if he sells all the items he didn't need, he would get at most 4 million points, which was far from enough. Allan didn't want to give up. After he sold the sword, Yutsufuza, for 1 million points. Now, he had 5 million points and 15 million were left. Allan proceeded to sell his observation and armament Haki, which got him 1.5 million points. Allan sold Yoru for another million, and now he had 7.5 million points. Allan gritted his teeth and sold the Raise Non, Chidori, Bunsho Tenin, and Shinra Tensei one after the other. Those abilities added up to 3.5 million points, and now he had 11 million points. Allan then checked all the items and abilities he currently still had and found that if he sold them, he would get 10 million points. Allan had to reluctantly sell them. He enjoyed using most of those abilities, and he found it a pity to actually sell them. But he thought that as long as he obtains the law of space, it will be worth it. Allan's ice fruit and rumble fruit were sold at 4 million points. Allan could only bear the pain. Next was Star Platinum, which was sold at 3 million points. The Mangekyo Sharinon, which was the last ability Allan had, was sold for 3 million points. After selling those abilities and items, Allan finally gathered 21 million points. At this time, apart from the original Nin ability he had, Allan didn't have any extra ability or item. Allan abandoned all of his abilities and items for the space law, which was a major choice in his life. Allan directly used 20 million points and finally obtained the space law. The space law should be stronger than all the abilities and items Allan had previously. With this power, even if it's a god, I will be fearless. Allan clenched his fists and looked at the sky. Chapter 309, Choice for the New Chairman. After getting the space law, Allan entered seclusion. Although he had this power now, he wasn't able to control it, so it took practice. 10 days later, Allan finally ended his seclusion. Although he wasn't proficient yet, he can use the space law at its basic level. For example, he can teleport. The teleport using the law of space was a genuine teleport. It's not a fast movement, but actually going from point A to point B instantly. At this moment, he received a notice from Netero inviting him to the association. Now, as a triple-star hunter, Allan was eligible to attend the important discussions held in the association. After receiving the notice, Allan decided to use the space law to teleport to the association. Allan's house was located in the center of the city, and about a few hundred kilometers away from the association. It takes 2 hours by car and 1 hour by aircraft to reach there. Using the law of space, Allan could use short-distance teleportation. His current limit was teleporting a kilometer at a time, so after a few jumps, Allan was already at the association. It took only 100 seconds, which was 1 minute and 40 seconds to travel a few hundred kilometers. In Netero's office, the latter looked at Allan before saying, "Well, I haven't seen you for a while and you seem to have changed." Allan was startled. Netero's eyes were sharp. He smiled and asked, "What change did the chairman notice?" Netero replied, "I don't know exactly, but I feel like you are more powerful, or mysterious. I can't even see through you anymore." Allan smiled, "Thanks for the praise, Chairman, I just gained a new ability. However, for this reason, I also abandoned all of my previous powers. It can be said that now, I entered a brand new realm. I will let you see what I mean sometime later, Chairman." "Haha, I look forward to it," Netero said. After exchanging a few words, Allan finally asked, "Chairman, what is it that required my presence this time?" Netero said, "This old man is going to retire. I wanted to ask your opinion." Allan wasn't surprised by this decision. "Well, if you want to retire, of course, there shouldn't be a problem, Chairman." "So, who do you think should be elected as the new chairman?" Netero asked. Allan thought for a while before he replied, "I'm not familiar with my colleagues in the association, but if you ask me to recommend someone, it should be one from the 12 zodiacs." Netero nodded, "This old thinks so as well. Those who take the chairman's position must have knowledge about the association. They also need to be strong enough. The 12 zodiacs are indeed the most suitable candidates. So which one of the 12 does chairman think is most suitable?" Allan asked. "Well, I have 2 candidates in mind," Netero replied. "Oh? Can you tell me who they are?" Allan asked curiously. Netero replied, "The first one is Pariston. In addition to being one of the 12 zodiacs, he is also the vice-chairman, and knows almost everything in the association. The second one is Cheadle Yorkshire. She is strong and recognized in the association, her reputation is high amongst her peers. She is also one of the few triple-star hunters. I have no doubt that she has the qualification to be the next chairman." Allan nodded at the candidates that Netero chose and said, "Pariston and Miss Cheadle Yorkshire are indeed the best candidates, they have the ability to be in that position, but..." "But what?" Netero asked. "I think there is someone else that can be the chairman," Allan said. "You mean that Jing Freaks guy?" Netero asked. "Yes, it's Gon's father. Although I haven't met him yet, they say that he is a great hunter," Allan said. Netero said, "It's undeniable that this guy is indeed a very good hunter. No, I should say he is a genius. At a young age, he is a very powerful Nin user, he also made a lot of contributions to the association and qualifies for the position, but..." "But what?" "But that guy won't become the chairman. In other words, Jing himself doesn't want to be the chairman, he doesn't like to be restrained." "Restrained? Haha, this word is used well. That's right, Jing is a person who yearns for freedom and adventure. He has no interest in becoming the chairman and managing the association. Therefore, it's impossible for him to become the chairman. Haha, in that case, you can only choose from Pariston and Miss Cheadle Yorkshire, Allan said. Well. Election. Netero replied, I will let the members of the association vote for the 12 zodiacs. All 12 of them will be candidates for the position, and whoever gets more votes will be the chairman. What do you think? Well, that's a good idea, I think it will work. Allan nodded. He was also interested in electing the new chairman. Chapter 310, The 12 Zodiacs Gathers. A week later, Netero called the 12 Zodiacs to hold a meeting. In a meeting room inside the association's headquarters, the 12 Zodiacs along with Netero sat down. The 12 Zodiacs are usually busy, so, gathering the 12 at the same time is rare. It's not easy to invite them all at the same time. But they didn't refuse this gathering after Netero invited them, which shows Netero's weight in their hearts. Pariston Hill, the rat. Myzystem Nana, the ox. Kanzai, the tiger. Payan, the rabbit. Badabai Giganti, the dragon. Gel, the snake. Sako Kobayakawa, the horse. Jinta, the sheep. Sayu, the monkey. Cluck, the chicken. Cheadle Yorkshire, the dog. Jing Freaks, the boar. In addition to them, Allan was also invited to this meeting. Right now, he was sitting next to Netero. Originally, Allan didn't want to join the fun, but Netero said all the 12 zodiacs are coming, so he wanted to see them. The members of the 12 zodiacs weren't unfamiliar with Allan, after all, Allan was well known now. Besides, he is a triple-star hunter and deserved to be here with them. But there are several people who met Allan for the first time here, one of them was Jing Freaks. Jing at this moment looked at Allan a few times before he said, I didn't expect you to be so young. You really are good. You're also younger than I thought. I thought you'd be an old man already. Allan said casually. I heard that you saved Kite when he was fighting the Chimera ants, thank you. Jing thanked Allan. You only care about Kite, your disciple? What about Gon, your son? Have you met him? He really wanted to meet you. Allan's words caught the attention of all the others there. Their eyes turned to Jing as they waited for the show. Jing scratched his head and said, I really haven't met Gon yet, but I heard that he is fine from Kite, you also took care of him, thank you. Allan replied, I don't need any useless thank you, since you're Gon's father, you should meet him. Jing nodded, besides coming to this meeting, I wanted to look for Gon, that's why I'm here. Fine then, Allan said. If Jing refused to meet Gon, Allan would be greatly disappointed in him. But the protagonist of this meeting was Netero, so he shouldn't show off. Netero went straight toward the main topic, everyone, I plan to retire. The 12 zodiacs already expected this and weren't surprised. After all, Netero was the chairman of the association for decades and he was already quite old. Chairman, are you really planning to retire? Asked Cheadle. Well, I already decided, Netero said. He already told Allan before, and this time, he was only informing them. Chairman, who are you going to appoint as the next chairman? Asked Myzystem Nana. The candidate for this position has to be selected from you 12, this is why I asked you to come, Netero explained. Chairman, you're thinking too highly of us. The 12 zodiacs looked at each other and fell into deep thoughts. After all, the position of the chairman was not really simple. The responsibility and workload are too great and even as senior hunters, they aren't fully confident to take this position. Netero said, the next chairman will be decided by an election. This particular election will be redone if the voting rate is less than 95%. The election will be repeated if the candidate with the most votes has not achieved the majority of votes in the first election. It is mandatory that all hunters write their names, or else all nameless votes will be null and void. The member with the highest number of votes, in the end, will take the position of chairman of the association. The 12 zodiacs felt the pressure but none of them refused. The atmosphere inside the room became gloomy, as some members disliked each other. Pariston knew that according to normal procedure, the vice-chairman should be the one to take over the chairman's position, but in this case, the other zodiacs won't agree. Because each of them doubted Pariston more or less. It's because of this that Netero proposed the election. In this way, it would be fair. At this time, the vice-chairman suddenly said, Chairman, why don't you add another candidate? Who do you want to add? Netero asked. It's the one next to you, Pariston said as he looked at Allan. Allan felt as if he was targeted for no apparent reason. Netero turned his head and asked, Allan, what do you think? Allan didn't expect Pariston to want him to join the election, but he immediately shook his head. I'm sorry, I have no interest in being the chairman of the Hunter Association. I appreciate your kindness, Vice Chairman Pariston. Pariston said, well, that's a pity, otherwise, you might become the youngest new chairman in the history of the association. Allan shrugged. After all, he is freer now and can do whatever he wanted. Chapter 311, Gon meets Jing. After the meeting, Allan went to Jing and said, Jing, I don't want you to slip away, so I will take you to Gon. Jing smiled awkwardly. Originally, he really wanted to slip away after the meeting, but Allan didn't allow that. Without any other choice, Jing followed Allan to meet Gon. Jing also wanted to meet Gon, however, he felt guilty about leaving Gon to Mito instead of looking after him himself, so he couldn't bring himself to face his child. He felt that he was unqualified to be Gon's father. Allan knew about this and comforted Jing, don't worry, Gon won't blame you. Really? Yes, I know Gon very well, better than you do. It seems so. Jing gave a wry smile without denying this. After a phone call, Allan found out that Gon was training with Kite and Killua. Since the end of the battle with the Chimera ants, they realized how weak they were and started training. Inside a villa a few dozens of kilometers away from the association, Gon and Killua were fighting against Kite. Even Kite felt the pressure from fighting those two together now and he was quite surprised by the rate of their progress. However, without relying on Nan's abilities, they weren't Kite's match. After all, Kite was older and had much experience in combat. So, in terms of the basics, Kite was stronger than both of them combined. Kite also got to know them better from the fights. Gon was stronger than Killua since he was an enhancer, but Killua had better techniques. Killua was also deceptive. Kite, you're really strong. Gon admired. This is really good, it looks like you can help us become stronger. Killua said. You two are strong as well and really talented. You are still young and have a bright future, but for now, you guys still can't win against me. After saying this, Kite directly kicked Gon and Killua. Both kids were thrown away and fell onto each other. Damn it, Gon, let me handle him for a bit. Killua was dissatisfied, so he made Gon stay back and decided to use all of his power. Kite was quite interested now that Killua refused to admit defeat. Killua released his Nen and turned it into an electric current. With Killua's God speed activated, he became even faster than Kite. However, with Kite's experience, he can deal with Killua even with the additional speed. After that, Kite pointed out the shortcomings of Killua's ability, which was the lack of attacking power. Although the speed was good, the power was not enough. When facing a stronger opponent, as an enhancer, it will be difficult to cause them any harm. Therefore, Kite advised Killua to increase his attacking power while maintaining his speed. After Killua ended his spar, it was Gon's turn. But at this moment, two guests came from outside. They were obviously Allan and Jing. The scene of Gon meeting Jing was slightly awkward. Neither of them took the initiative to speak up. Jing scratched the back of his head not knowing what to say. Allan sighed. Kite said, Teacher, you're finally willing to see Gon. Hearing Kite's words, Killua said, So, you're Gon's father, you look like him. Gon said, Killua, this is actually my first time seeing Jing. Shouldn't you call him father or dad? Killua asked as he heard Gon call his father by name. No, for now, I should call him by name, right? Gon looked at Jing. Jing replied, Well, you can call me Jing, you don't need to call me dad. Really weird father and son, Killua said speechlessly. It wasn't that Gon didn't want to call him father, but in a sense, they were strangers, since Gon knew nothing about Jing other than their blood relations. As for Jing, he was even more relaxed when Gon called him by his name instead of his father. Allan said, You two can talk first, let go. After that, Allan took Kite and Killua and left temporarily, allowing Gon and Jing to talk. After they left, Gon said, Jing, I have a lot to tell you, let's find a place to sit and talk. Jing nodded, I know a nice place, I will take you there. Good. Gon was looking forward to it. That place is called the World Tree, we will talk there. World Tree? Gon wondered. Jing, it's the largest tree in the world, as long as you climb to the top, you can see beautiful scenery. Upon hearing this, Gon said, then let's hurry and go. Jing said, the place is quite far away, so I asked my partner to take us there. Jing's partner? Strictly speaking, it's a bird, a very big bird. Under Jing's call, a huge bird appeared in the sky and then landed on the lawn near the villa. Wow, that's really a big bird. Gon was stunned. It's a partner I brought from somewhere, and it helped me travel all over the world. After that, Jing took Gon and jumped on the back of the giant bird, and flew to the World Tree. Chapter 312, World Tree. The World Tree reached a height of 1,784 meters, which was several hundred meters taller than the tallest building in the world. Thousands of people challenged the tree to reach the highest peak without using any tools. However, ordinary people won't be able to reach the peak, as 90% of them would give up halfway from exhaustion. The other 5% died in accidents, and only the last 5% would enjoy the scenery at its peak. On top of the giant bird, Gon and Jing reached the top of the World Tree. At the top, both started having a conversation all day and didn't leave until the next day. Gon learned a great deal of information from Jing. In particular, Gon learned about the current world that humans live in. The world was vast, very vast, and the current land humans govern was just a very small part of it. There were other continents besides the one inhabited by humans. Those continents were very dangerous. Humans won't be able to survive there. Gon also learned from Jing that the Chimera ant came from the other continents, one called Dark Continent. After gaining a new understanding of the world, Gon was eager and curious about the Dark Continent. As a hunter, he wanted to go on an adventure there. However, Jing told him that it's best to not go until he is 20, because the place was dangerous and even strong hunters died there. If you aren't strong enough, you can't go there. Even Jing wasn't sure he could come back from the Dark Continent if he went there. Gon promised Jing that he would not go until he was 20 years old. He still has 8 years to get stronger. When Jing saw Gon's determination, he smiled in relief. After that, Jing gave Gon some money and left him his contact information, before he temporarily returned to the Hunters Association. Gon, on the other hand, returned to Kite's villa. In order to become stronger, Gon and Killua trained together with Kite. As for Allan, he lived leisurely. For him who learned the law of space, he was no longer busy training. On the other hand, Netero formally submitted his resignation letter to the 12 Zodiacs and the V5. The V5 is another name for the 5 major powers. The Hunter Association is supported by the V5. This is the reason that the Hunter license had so much privilege around the world. Netero's resignation needs to be accepted by the V5 before he steps down, and if they don't agree, Netero could only continue being the chairman. Fortunately, the V5 executives finally agreed to let Netero resign. When Netero announced his retirement, it caused a lot of discussion around the world. In the decades that Netero held his position, he deeply influenced many people, especially the hunters. A few days later, Netero sent an official email to all members of the association to inform them about the election of the new chairman. After the hunters heard about the election, they rushed back from all over the world. Allan, Kite, Gon, and Killua also received the email and went to the association. When they reached the association, Allan and the others met Leorio and Kurapika, who they didn't see for a long time. Gon was the most excited and happy about this reunion. He went and told them about the fight with the Chimera ants, which made them understand the danger humanity faced. Besides them, even Hisoka came to the association. Although Gon and the others were surprised that Hisoka was here, they didn't say much. After all, Hisoka was a hunter. Hisoka was pleasantly surprised by Gon and Killua's growth. However, because Allan was there, he didn't dare look at them in any way. Chapter 313, Chairman's Election. 2 days later, the chairman's election started. There were around 635 hunters in the association currently. According to the statistics, a total of 606 hunters came to vote for the new chairman. On the day of the election, the association was very lively. In addition to them, some members of the V5 came to supervise the election to ensure fairness. Since the founding of the association, there were only 12 chairmen, and the 12th was Netero. Since Netero was retiring, it was time to elect the 13th chairman. Netero stood on the edge of the stage looking at the audience who were hunters who came to vote. As a triple-star hunter, Allan was in the first row. Gon, Killua, Kurapika and Leorio were in the second row. Other familiar faces were present, like Kite, Morel, Nove, and others. Hisoka was sitting on the row before last. Next to him was a very vacant space. No hunter was willing to sit next to him. They all felt that Hisoka was too dangerous and didn't dare sit there. If any hunter had a bit of knowledge, they would know of Hisoka, and even the 12 zodiacs didn't dare provoke him. Everyone was curious and surprised that such a dangerous person came to vote for the new chairman. Everyone, quiet down. Netero's voice stopped all discussions in the hall. Let's start the election now. Before we start voting, I will ask the 12 candidates to come out and give a speech. The first person that came out was Pariston. After introducing himself, he went on and said, I have served as the vice chairman for 3 years now and I learned a lot from Chairman Netero. Working with him made me understand the requirement for this position. First of all, it requires strength. As a professional hunter, you need to be strong, but as chairman of the entire Hunter Association, this position needs strength above all others. The second thing needed was the experience of being a professional hunter and managing the affair of the association. The third requirement is temperament. This is referring to the capacity to forgive and withstand oppression from others. People with limited resources can't hold the chairman position. If I have the chance to be the next chairman, I will definitively work to manage the association better and ensure further development. After Pariston finished his speech, the next to speak was Myzystem Nana, who didn't give a normal speech but instead explained that he didn't want to be the next chairman and wanted whoever was going to vote for him to give that vote to Jing Freaks. After that, the zodiacs each gave a different kind of speech. After the 12 finished their speeches, only 4 expressed their intention to become the next chairman. Jing also expressed that he had no interest in becoming the new chairman, and hoped that no one would vote for him. In addition to Jing, the other 3 were Badabai Giganti, the dragon, Pariston, the rat, and Cheetle the dog. Netero returned to the stage and said, then, let's start the votes now, each person can vote for 1 candidate, and the one with the highest votes will be the new chairman. After saying this, the voting process started. The 12 zodiacs stood on the stage with a box in front of them. Hunters who voted only needed to write their names on a piece of paper and then drop it in the box. Allan, who do you want to vote for? Kite walked toward Allan and asked. Well, I plan to vote for Badabai Giganti, Allan said. Mr. Badabai Giganti is indeed a good candidate, but I decided to vote for Jing since he is my teacher, Kite said. Gon heard that Kite was planning to give his vote to Jing and said, Jing said he doesn't want to be the chairman, so Kite, you should give your vote to someone else. Then Gon, who are you going to vote for? Kite asked. I don't know much about the zodiacs, but judging from their speech, I decided to vote for Pariston. After hearing this, Kite said, Gon, do you know that Pariston and your father had a very rocky relationship? They think differently, and although they are not enemies, they think too differently. They are kind of rivals. It turns out that Pariston is Jing's rival. I will give my vote to someone else then, I have to think about it. Gon said. Killua, how about you? Seeing Gon struggling, Allan asked Killua. Whatever, I don't care who will be the next chairman anyway, Killua replied. Then, you have to choose someone to support, Allan said. Then just like you, I will give my vote to Mr. Badabai Giganti. Killua decided. Allan nodded and then asked, what about you, Leorio, Kurapika? Who are you voting for? Kurapika replied, I decided to vote for Miss Cheetle. After that, each one voted for someone they wanted to support. When Allan went to vote, he happened to meet Hisoka and asked, who did you vote for? Hisoka glanced at Gon and said, I voted for Gon's father. After that, everyone returned to their seats. The staff started counting the votes and Netero finally come to announce the result of the election. Chapter 314, New Chairman. Everyone, the votes have been counted, and there are 600 valid votes and only 6 didn't vote. Following that, Netero announced the votes of the 12 candidates. In the last place is Payan with 19 votes. The 11th place was Gel, with 20 votes. In 10th place was Sako Kobayakawa, with 23 votes. The 9th place is Jinta, with 24 votes. The 8th place is Sayu, with 27 votes. The 7th place is Kanzei, with 30 votes. The 6th place is Cluck, with 37 votes. In 5th place was Myzystem Nano with 41 votes. In 4th place was Cheetle, with 60 votes. Netero stopped in the 4th place without announcing the last 3. The remaining 3 were Jing, Paristan, and Badabai Giganti. The 3 of them had most of the votes and one of them will be the next chairman. Allan and the others started guessing who will get 3rd place and so on. Gon, do you think your father will get the 1st place? Asked Killua. Gon shook his head and said, I don't think so. You felt so? Allan asked. Yeah. Gon nodded. Leorio said, I think Jing should be 2nd place. Kurapika had a different view as he said, I think Jing is either in the 1st or 3rd place. Hearing this, Leorio said, do you want to be? Okay, what do we bet on? Kurapika asked. How about 100,000 Jenny? Leorio said. No problem, Kurapika replied. Then I will bet that he will get the 2nd place, Leorio said. Kurapika thought for a bit and said, then I bet that he got the 1st place. At this time Allan said, why don't you let me in too? Kurapika and Leorio nodded at the same time and said, no problem, so what place do you think Jing will get? Allan said, I will bet he got 3rd place. What? Both Leorio and Kurapika felt something weird. From the way everyone voted, Jing should be 1st or 2nd place. Of course, Paristan and Badabai Giganti were also popular. After a while, Netero announced the number of votes for the 3rd place, which was, sure enough, Jing with 90 votes. Allan guessed right and won the bet. Leorio and Kurapika each gave Allan 100,000 Jenny. Allan put them away happily. Killua said, I knew that I should have bet on Jing getting 3rd place. Leorio murmured, you're only saying that now. Allan smiled, the 1st and 2nd place is not announced yet, so let's bet on who is 1st and 2nd, and this time we'll also use 100,000 Jenny. Then I will bet that the new chairman will be Paristan, Leorio said confidently. Allan then said, then I will be on Badabai Giganti. Leorio smiled, this time I will win, you won't be so lucky each time. Allan smiled back, then let's wait and see. Following that, everyone else also gave their bets. Kurapika said, I will also bet on Mr. Badabai Giganti. Me too. Killua continued. Then, we'll play as well, I will also bet on Mr. Badabai Giganti. Gon said. Hearing this, Leorio was speechless, you guys are that confident that Badabai Giganti will get the 1st place. At this moment, Leorio was a bit shaken, but he placed his bet first, so he can't change it now. If he wins the bet, he would get 400,000 Jenny, but if he lost, he will have to give that amount all at once. Finally, Netero announced the 1st and 2nd places, which were 114 votes for Paristan, and 115 for Badabai Giganti. Therefore, in this election, Badabai Giganti won and became the chairman. Badabai Giganti was one of the closest people to Netero and he had both strength and reputation. So, no one was dissatisfied with him. Leorio sighed. Killua rubbed it in, Leorio, you lost. Leorio was helpless, so he could only give out the 400,000 Jenny to the 4 of them. He could only accept this loss. Chapter 315, Departure. After the election, Badabai Giganti became the 13th chairman of the Hunter Association. The vice-chairman was still Paristan, and the former chairman, Netero, officially retired. At the succession ceremony, Badabai Giganti declared that he will manage the association to the best of his ability and won't disappoint everyone's expectations. The next day, most hunters were leaving, and at this time, Gon saw Jing again. This is their 2nd meeting and it wasn't as awkward as the first one. After Jing and Gon chatted casually, Jin asked Gon about his next plan. Gon said that he will go train for the time being. Jing nodded and expressed his support. After that, Gon asked about Jing's plan. Jing explained that he will visit new places on the Dark Continent. Since he was talking about the Dark Continent, Jing explained that Gon needed 4 things to prepare before he can go there. The first is the license, which was a special license issued by the V5. Because, the Dark Continent isn't a place can go as they please, they needed permission first. Following that were the means, qualifications and contracts which Jing didn't explain. Because the license wasn't something easily obtained. The conversation between Jing and Gon was heard by Allan, who was interested and said to Jing, "When are you going to the Dark Continent? Remember to contact me before you go, I will come with you." Hearing this, Jing said, "No problem, you even eliminated the Ant King, which shows your power." After that, Jing left. Allan, Gon, and the others were going to part ways. Before that, they each talked about their next destination and plans. Kite said that he would continue his previous work and look for new biological creatures and prevent other chimera ants-like creatures from emerging. After hearing this, Gon wanted to go along with Kite to train. Kite agreed to this and decided to take Gon along. Gon later asked Killua if wanted to join him, but Killua refused, saying, "I'm sorry, Gon, I have to go back home, I can't accompany you to train for a while." Gon didn't force this as Killua's family was special. Killua then added, "I will look for you and Kite when I'm done." Gon nodded, then asked Leorio and Kurapika about what they will do next. Leorio explained, "I have obtained a medical certificate and I'm a doctor now, I'm ready to help people and make a lot of money." Kurapika on the other hand said, "I will continue to trace my tribe's eyes and look for Krollo's whereabouts." Allan then said, "If you want to find Krollo or the spiders, you can go to Meteor City, that is their hometown." "Meteor City, I will go there then," Kurapika said. "Allan, where are you going?" Gon asked. Allan thought for a while before he said, "I'm going back to the Heavens Arena, because Killua's brother, Kalito is waiting for me there, I'm going to see him." Allan took Kalito to the Heavens Arena to train, and it has been a while so he didn't know what's Kalito's situation now. After that, everyone went their separate ways. The Heavens Arena was hundreds of kilometers away from the Hunter Association, but Allan didn't have to take any means of transportation, as he just casually teleported there in less than 5 minutes. After arriving at the Heavens Arena, Allan directly went to look for Kalito, but he didn't find him there. Allan directly contacted Zeno to see if Kalito returned home, but he replied that Kalito didn't return and he couldn't even contact him. This made Allan anxious since he was the one who took Kalito away. He felt responsible for this, so he tried to search for Kalito till one day, Allan was finally able to reach Kalito's phone. Kalito explained that he joined an organization and was training in that organization, so Allan didn't need to worry. Kalito didn't specify which organization he joined, but Allan guessed it was the Phantom Brigade. It must be that Krollo attracted Kalito's attention and made him curious about the Phantom Brigade. Since Kalito said there is nothing to worry about, Allan didn't intervene. As long as the Phantom Brigade didn't provoke him, Allan wouldn't care about them. After leaving the Heavens Arena, Allan decided to go to some restricted areas around the world. Chapter 316, Gourmet Hunter. Time flew by and a year passed. On a small island somewhere, a red-haired pig was being roasted on fire. In front of the fire, a young man was staring at it waiting patiently to try this delicacy. This young man was of course Allan, and next to him was a young woman. This woman was short, wore a black transparent short sleeves top, and had a starfish-like hairstyle. She of course wasn't an ordinary woman, but a single-star gourmet hunter, Menchi. 1 year ago, Allan and Gon went each their separate way, and 2 months ago while Allan was adventuring around, he met Menchi, who was looking for some exquisite food. Menchi's former partner was Buera, but he died facing the chimera ants. After that accident, Menchi didn't look for a new partner and instead started journeying by herself. After meeting Allan, Menchi felt that it was fate and invited him to join her in looking for delicacies. Allan agreed to be Menchi's temporary partner. Menchi also felt safer with Allan around, since he was quite strong. There is always danger around rare ingredients and exquisite animals, so bringing Allan along with guaranteed safety. As for Allan, he was bored traveling alone, so he decided to join Menchi in her adventure to find food. In fact, whether it was Allan or Menchi, adventuring alone would get boring and make them feel lonely sometimes, so they can share the joy of traveling when they are together. In the past 2 months, Allan gained a new understanding of food. For example, the red-haired pig that was being roasted was caught by him. In the eyes of a gourmet hunter, this pig was a level 1 capture target, which meant that even 10 strong men couldn't capture it. To capture it, you need 10 hunters with powerful skills. The habitat of the red-haired pigs was generally the jungles, cliffs, canyons, and other places. The meat was soft and juicy, it only needed to be grilled on the fire without adding anything. It's a premium ingredient that can only be found in a 5-star restaurant. "Hey, Menchi, it has been roasting for more than an hour, can I eat now? I'm hungry already. Hearing Allan's words, Menchi raised her head and said, not yet, the red-haired pig's body is huge, it needs 2 hours to roast at least, you should bear it for now. Okay, I will wait. In order to eat delicious meat, Allan could only hold back and wait. During the 2 months with Menchi, Allan was spoiled too much and ordinary food can't entice him anymore. Only high-quality delicacy and satisfy him now. The fragrant smell of the meat attracted many small animals. After some time, Allan finally tore off a large piece from the pig's leg and ate it. Menchi said, the red-haired pig is a high-quality ingredient, 100 grams of it can be sold for 80,000 jenny. This pig weighs at least 300 kilograms, so it's not affordable for most people and priceless in the market. We are lucky to find it on such an island. Unexpectedly, the price of this pig is so high. It seems that I won't have to worry about food following you. Allan said. That's for sure, as long as you follow me, you can eat delicacies 10 times better than this, Menchi boasted. Being a gourmet hunter is really good. I think I will convert into one as well. Allan said. Hearing this, Menchi said, if you want to eat delicious things by becoming a gourmet hunter, then it's impossible to be an excellent one. Allan was puzzled, what do you mean? Does it need other conditions? Of course, if you want to be gourmet hunter, you must have enough knowledge of the ingredients and have decent cooking techniques. If you just want to eat, that's not gourmet hunter. I understand. Although I don't know most of the ingredients, I will study hard to be an excellent gourmet hunter. Seeing that Allan was enlightened, Menchi patted his shoulder and said, just follow me, you will be a great gourmet hunter just doing that. Allan nodded. Menchi was a single-star gourmet hunter and is an expert. He would learn a lot about food by just following her. Half an hour later, the red-haired pig was eaten by Allan and Menchi. Menchi said, in fact, high-end ingredients are not only delicious, but they also have some effects that ordinary ingredients don't. For example, some high-grade ingredients can enhance physical power, some of them can even prolong life. Allan was surprised, is it that magical? It's true, but those kinds of ingredients are very rare. You can't find them easily and most of them are in highly dangerous areas. Allan curiously asked, what do you mean? There are some areas with those kinds of ingredients. Menchi nodded, yes, I know some places that have those ingredients. Where? Allan asked curiously. Menchi didn't answer directly, but instead asked, Allan, have you been to some places outside of the world's map? Allan frowned and said, outside the map? Do you mean the Dark Continent? Chapter 317, Outside World. Hearing Allan mentioning the Dark Continent, Menchi was surprised, do you know that place? Well, it is said that there are all kinds of creatures there and the chimera ants originated from that place, Allan said. Menchi nodded and said, yeah, the Dark Continent is a mysterious place, there is barely any information about it, and each time a human sets foot on it, they will bring back a disaster. That's why the V5 signed a treaty prohibiting any humans from going there without their permission. I heard that Chairman Netero has been there before, Allan said. Yes, Chairman Netero has indeed been there, and he is one of the few people who returned successfully, Menchi replied. Allan asked confusedly, then when you were talking is not the Dark Continent? What do you mean the outside world? Menchi replied, I wasn't talking about the Dark Continent. Allan couldn't help his curiosity, then what are talking about? Are there other places outside the world? Menchi said seriously, actually, based on my personal experience, I learned that there are other continents besides the Dark Continent. Allan nodded and listened intently. It's different from the Dark Continent, humans live there. How do I get there? Allan asked. If there are other continents with humans in this world, it will be a huge discovery. Do you know the Bilgai Desert? Menchi asked. Allan thought for a bit then nodded, well, I've heard about it. It is said to be one of the 3 biggest and harshest places in the world. A very dangerous place. Menchi explained, the Bilgai Desert is located in the Republic of Rocario. Only licensed hunters can enter that area. Hearing this, Allan complimented, Menchi, you really know a lot about this, are you going there in the future? However, what I want to know is, what does that desert have to do with the continent where other humans live? Menchi thought for a while before she said, as far as I know, the Bilgai Desert seems to have a passage to the outside world. Allan seemed really excited. Where is that passage? How did you know about it? I went to the Bilgai desert once, and when I was looking for food, I saved a person in that desert. Hearing this, Allan pondered, it seems like this person wasn't an ordinary person. Could it be a human from the outside world? Menchi said, the language he spoke was different from our own, but the pronunciation was similar. As a gourmet hunter, I'm familiar with many languages, so I quickly come to understand what he's saying. What surprised me was this person was a gourmet. Because of some accident, this person came to our world by chance. In fact, he didn't know that he came to a different continent or world at all. But while communicating with him, I learned that he didn't come from our world. According to him, he came from the outside world. Therefore, I learned that our current world isn't the only place with humans. What's that person's name? Allan asked curiously. He is called Komatsu, Menchi said. Komatsu. T/N, Toriko's cook, or whatever, didn't actually watch Toriko. Allan frowned. The name is familiar, but he couldn't remember where he heard it. The name was quite ordinary, so it wouldn't be strange that he heard it from somewhere. Immediately afterward, Allan asked, where is that Komatsu now? Has he gone back? Menchi nodded, well, Komatsu already left. When he left, he invited me to go with him. But I refused because, at that time, I still fear the outside world. This fear originated from the Dark Continent. I started wondering whether Komatsu was from the Dark Continent or not, but after reading some ancient books, I discovered that there are many unknown areas in the world besides the Dark Continent. It was unknown whether these areas were inhabited by humans or not, but from what I have experienced, it seems that some of them have humans. So, I believed what Komatsu said and knew that there are other humans on other continents. After hearing this, Allan was lost in thought. After a long time, he raised his head and looked at Menchi. You told me about this, do you want me to accompany you there? Yeah, but to be precise, I want to leave this continent and see the outside world, not necessarily go to the continent where Komatsu is located, because I think there are many unknown places in the world, Menchi explained. Chapter 318, Inviting Netero. Before setting off to Bilgai Desert, Allan thought of a person, so he suggested to Menchi, going to the outside world is a very risky thing, we don't anything about those places. If we get someone who traveled to the outside world before, it should be safer. Hearing this, Menchi thought of someone. The person she thought about is obviously the same one Allan thought about. Because only a handful of people actually went outside the world and returned. Isaac Netero, the former chairman of the Hunter Association, was someone who traveled to the Dark Continent and returned back safely. He is one of the few that knows the outside world. Menchi looked at Allan and said, are you going to look for Chairman Netero to go with us? Allan smiled and nodded, Chairman Netero is retired now, and he has all the time to adventure. Since he doesn't have anything to do, I think he is currently very bored. So, we might as well invite him to go with us. Furthermore, Chairman Netero is someone who returned safely from the Dark Continent. He should know about the other places better than we do. I also think the Chairman Netero wants to see the outside world again, so let's take this opportunity to invite him. He should agree. Menchi thought for a while and agreed with Allan. If it was someone else, she wouldn't agree, but it is Netero, he would be of great help. Okay. This meant that it is up to you to convince him. Rest assured, Chairman Netero will agree. If it was someone else, Allan wouldn't dare guarantee this, but Netero will definitively agree. Netero owed him his life since he saved him using the senzu bean. Furthermore, Netero appreciated and admired Allan's strength. Allan contacted Netero and the call was quickly connected. Netero was curious and surprised by Allan's call. Because he knew that Allan wouldn't just call to ask about his situation, and there must be something important for the call. Through the conversation, Allan learned that Netero is living a secluded life alone deep in a mountain. Although life was plain, it was comfortable enough. After talking about the situation briefly, Allan invited Netero. Hearing that Alana and Menchi were going to the outside world, Netero said strangely, going to the Dark Continent is forbidden by the V5, even if you are a professional hunter, you can't go without their permission. Furthermore, even if you want to go, I'm afraid you won't know the route toward the Dark Continent. Facing Netero's doubt, Allan smiled and said, Chairman, you have misunderstood, we aren't going to the Dark Continent, but to other continents in the outside world. What, other continents? Hearing this, Netero was silent for a moment before he said, "It looks like you know a lot, you actually know about the other continents besides the Dark Continent." Hearing Netero's answer, Allan was overjoyed. This meant that Netero knew about the other continents. Netero thought for a few seconds before he said, "Well, I will meet with you first, then we will talk in detail." This way, Allan told Netero his current location and waited for him to come over. Chapter 319, Netero's Amazing Appetite. 3 days later, on the same small island, Menchi and Allan were roasting a beast on the fire. "It's been 3 days, will Chairman Netero really come? Did he stand us up? That old man." While cutting off a piece of the beast's leg, Menchi complained. Allan on the side was much calmer. "This place is very far and remote, even if he took an aircraft, it would take him 2 days and a half at least. If he is coming by boat, it will take several days. Just wait patiently and have some trust in Chairman Netero." Menchi said, "I don't have your patience, I will just wait another day, if he doesn't come, I will ignore that smelly old man." "Okay, no problem." Allan was confident that Netero will come soon, so he agreed with Menchi to appease her. At an altitude of several kilometers, a huge bird was flying in the clouds. On the back of the giant bird, 2 old men stood. The first old man sat cross-legged on the head of the bird, looking down to the ground under the clouds. The old man wore a blue and white kimono, he had a thick beard like a goat and a ponytail. His earlobes were long and he seemed like a peaceful Buddha. The other old man stood on the back of the giant bird with his hand behind his back. Although his hair and beard were white, his eyes were sharp. He was wearing a shirt that had the words "1 kill in a day, never retire." "Well, Chairman, the island you're talking about should be the one below," Zeno reminded. "Okay, let's go down," Netero said. When the giant bird started descending, Allan and Menchi noticed it. Allan had sharp eyes and directly noticed the 2 people on top of the bird, one was Isaac Netero, and the other was Zeno Zaldik. As the giant bird landed, both old men jumped off. Allan and Menchi greeted them and the latter said, "Old man, you're too slow." Netero scratched his head and smiled, Sorry. He knew Menchi's temperament and that his tardiness will cause Menchi's dissatisfaction. So he could only laugh it off. At this moment, Allan said, "Chairman, Mr. Zeno, it's been a long time since we last met." Netero glanced at Allan up and down before he said, "I haven't seen you in a year and it seems like you're still as energetic as before." Zeno asked, "I heard that you're a gourmet hunter now." Allan nodded and said, "The pursuit of food is also a type of training." Zeno touched his beard and said, "Well, it's good to be a gourmet hunter, but if you come to learn to be an assassin, it would be better." After chatting for a while, Allan turned to Netero and asked, "By the way, Chairman, why did you come with Mr. Zeno? Is he going with us?" Hearing this, Zeno shook his head, "I'm an assassin, I can't just go as I want, I still have my family's business and can't travel far away, besides, this old man is not interested in the outside world." Netero explained, "I just asked Zeno to bring me over because it's more convenient than taking an aircraft." "I see." Allan glanced at the giant bird behind Zeno, it didn't seem smaller than the guard dog of the Zaldik. At this time, Netero's nose twitched as he sniffed, "It smells so good, what are you guys cooking?" "Red-haired pig," Allan said. Zeno said, "That's a beast with a very harsh temperament, you actually eat it." Allan replied, "Although it's fierce, it is also very delicious. It's a very high-end ingredient." Zeno sniffed and said, "Well, it's really fragrant." Netero asked, "Do you mind sharing some food with us 2 old men?" "Enjoy yourselves." Allan smiled lightly. After eating so much of the red-haired pig, Allan and Menchi don't find its meat attractive anymore. But Netero was different, it was his first time eating this type of meat, which directly hit the spot for him. In less than 10 minutes, most of the red-haired pig was eaten, leaving only its skeleton. Zeno only ate a little bit. Netero said, "This meat is really delicious." Netero ate faster than Allan and Menchi together, even the latter was surprised, "Chairman, you eat too fast, and you have such a big appetite, you really opened my eyes." Netero laughed and said, "When I was young, I could eat more than this, my best record was eating 10 wild boars." Allan and Menchi really admired Netero's amazing appetite. Chapter 320, Mobius Lake. At an altitude of several kilometers, a giant bird flew in the clouds. On top of the giant bird sat Netero, Zeno, Allan, and Menchi. Thanks to Netero bringing Zeno, they could go to their destination directly. The Bilgai Desert is located in the Republic of Rocario. There were several other countries close by like the NGL. Due to the Chimera ants invasion, those countries close by were taken over by the V5. While they were on their way, Netero expressed his doubt about their destination. Menchi directly answered his question. After hearing her brief explanation, Netero was surprised that the Bilgai Desert had access to the outside world. Allan also took this opportunity to ask Netero about the Dark Continent. Netero didn't answer directly but first said, "The world which we humans currently live in has 6 continents, 10 regions, and thousands of countries. And these areas added up are on a huge lake called the Mobius. This Mobius lake, which carries billions of people, is just a small part of this vast world. The Dark Continent is just outside of the Mobius lake, which is called the Outer World in ancient books. But in fact, the Dark Continent, like the Mobius lake, is just another small part of the world. No one actually knows how large the world outside of the Mobius lake is. There is no way to know how many areas have life. Someone must explore and take the risk to get that knowledge. So, what is outside the Mobius lake? How far is it from the Dark Continent?" Allan asked curiously. Netero recalled for a bit. "The land we live on is surrounded by an ocean. On the outskirt of the Mobius lake, there is a Black Sea. Decades ago, I left the Mobius lake and it took me several months to cross the vast sea, before finally reaching the border of the Dark Continent." Hearing this, Allan started thinking, since the whole world they are currently on is surrounded by the Mobius lake, then why would there be a way out inside the Bilgai Desert? In that desert, is there a space-time gate? Warp holes? Now, Allan started getting skeptical about Menchi's story. He even wondered if Menchi had deliberately fabricated a lie to deceive him. But he quickly threw this thought away. He was with Menchi for a long time and knew about her character better than most people. So what Menchi said should be true and there is no possibility that she was deceiving him. A day later, Allan and Menchi along with Netero reached the Republic of Rocario with Zeno's help. There are many restrictions here, even its own people can't just enter and leave as they wished. Only officials and hunters can enter. The Bilgai Desert was a restricted area. Just because this desert is extremely dangerous and many people went missing there, which made that desert known as the Lost Land. Despite the effort of many rescue teams, not a single missing person was found. The rescue teams didn't just fail to find people, they even lost their way there and joined the list of missing people. Because of the many disappearances in that desert, it is a restricted area. In recent years, only a few people entered the desert. From the back of the giant bird that was several thousand meters in the sky, Allan, Menchi, and Netero jumped down. Allan looked at Zeno and said, "Mr. Zeno, thank you for giving us a ride, you saved us a lot of time." Zeno nodded and said, "Then I will go back, I wish you all success." After jumping down, Menchi pulled out a map and said, "Now, we are about 20 kilometers away from the nearest town. We can go to this town to find a place to rest, and then go to the local farm to get a few horses, get some supplies and then go on our way." Allan and Netero didn't have a problem with this plan and direct all three of them went to find a hotel. This place didn't have any large hotels, no cars, no technology can be seen at all. Their mean of transportation was mostly horses and cart or oxen and carts. The standards of living here are way behind most parts of the world. Because the nearest area to this place was a desert, water was very precious, and poor people couldn't even afford some of it. They needed to move more than 10 kilometers from the town to get some water. Menchi came here before, so she was familiar with the place, so she explained the current situation in this region. The three of them rented 3 horses from the farm nearby. The horses weren't ordinary horses, but desert horses that are used to the harsh environment. After resting for the night, the 3 of them set off on the back of the horses. When they were close to the Bilgai Desert, 3 patrol officers stopped them from entering the desert. Allan, Netero, and Menchi showed their hunter licenses and explained that they were going in to do a biological investigation. With the license, the patrols couldn't stop them anymore. The patrol officers still warned them about the danger of the desert and explained that if they get in danger, then no one will come to rescue them. The trio just laughed, because if they can't come back, probably, no one can in this world. Chapter 321, Bilgai Desert. In the endless desert, Allan, Netero, and Menchi each rode on a horse crossing through the sandy lands. Bilgai Desert was one of the most dangerous places on the continent. Since the founding of the Republic of Rocario, more than 100,000 people lost their way and were declared missing in the Bilgai Desert. 15 years ago, the Bilgai Desert was listed as a restricted area. But every year, there are some adventurous people who would ignore the danger and bypass the inspection to enter the desert illegally. This means that the 100,000 missing people were just the ones who came in legally. There are a few lucky ones who would enter the desert and come back safely. But after a while, the place was rumored to have a man-eating monster and illusions that make people get lost inside. In short, this desert had countless rumors about the dangers it contained, but everyone knew that this place was dangerous no matter the rumor. On the way, Menchi reminded Netero and Allan, "This desert is very strange, I don't know when the weather would change and become a sandstorm, so be careful, or else we will get separated." Netero and Allan nodded. They weren't arrogant people to think they can take everything in the world. Especially not when faced with the danger of a natural environment. Allan wasn't that concerned about danger though, because the law of space granted him protection from almost anything. Netero was one of the strongest nin users in the world, and with his Buddha, he can face most danger without losing. The only one who isn't as well equipped is Menchi, but with her experience in wild environments, she can survive. As long as they take precautions, they won't have a problem. At this moment, a sandstorm started forming in the distance. Seeing this, the three of them directly found a place to hide temporarily. But the sandstorm started getting bigger and bigger till it became huge and a tornado was formed. Damn it, an Emperor Dragon's tornado! Emperor Dragon's tornado! Simply put, it's a sandstorm combined with a tornado, and the largest scale of this kind of phenomenon was hundreds of tornadoes. The power it holds is so strong I don't think anyone can actually survive after being close to it. Allan and Netero frowned. If it was an ordinary tornado, they were able to deal with it, but if it's of that size, they could only escape. The tornado was slowly approaching them. Seeing this, Netero was ready to activate his nin ability to defend against the tornado. At this time, Allan said, "Chairman, Menchi, stretch out your hand." Hand. Both Menchi and Netero were puzzled. "There is no time to explain, just give me your hands." Hearing this, Menchi and Netero grabbed Allan's hands and decided to believe him. Allan immediately took their hands and suddenly they felt something strange happening, as if strange energy was flowing into their bodies. The next second, the three of them disappeared. On the horses remained there. A few seconds later, the tornado swept the horses and all the supplies along with them. 10 kilometers away from the storm, Allan, Menchi, and Netero appeared out of thin air. Menchi was surprised. "This is... what's going on?" She raised her head to look into the distance and saw that the tornado was moving away from them. She felt like she was in an illusion. Did the storm move away or did we move away? Even Netero was puzzled by this, but he quickly calmed down and said, "It looks like we moved far away from the storm." The two turned toward Allan as the latter explained, "We are now 10 kilometers away from the tornado, we are safe." Netero said, "You took us 10 kilometers away in the blink of an eye, I didn't expect you to have this ability." Allan shrugged, "Well, I have the power to manipulate space. I just teleported us away from the tornado. I can only teleport things I touch, and I can pass through anything in the way no matter the obstacle, but creating a space channel and moving at the speed of light. That's a pretty powerful ability." Netero's words weren't flattery, but admiration. This is the first time he encountered such a thing as teleportation. It was simply a magical ability. Menchi patted Allan's shoulder and said, "In short, thanks to you, we are alive. I can tell that even with our nin, I and Chairman would have been swallowed by that tornado." Allan knew that no matter the power, it can't be compared to the power in nature. Allan then sighed, "Although we managed to escape safely, the horses and supplies are gone, we can only use whatever we have on us now." Netero replied, "There is nothing we can do about that." Menchi glanced at the sky and said, "It's getting dark, so let's find some place to rest because the temperature of this place during the night will be quite cold." Chapter 322, Menchi's Sword Technique. As night fell, the group of three found a place in the desert to rest. As their supplies and horses were swept away by the tornado, they didn't have anything to eat. Fortunately, they were all nin users and their vitality was quite strong, so even if they don't eat for a while, they won't have a problem. but the feeling of hunger is making them uncomfortable, especially Allan. He got used to the delicacy that Menchie made for him and now he can't stand it when he had to go without a meal for so long. Allan finally decided and said, "You two stay here, I will go look for some food." Menchie stood up and said, "I will go with you since I'm familiar with the place. If you get lost, we'll be in trouble." "Okay." Allan nodded. The two of them left, leaving Netero alone. On the way, Menchie reminded Allan, "Be careful, there will be many monsters and beasts in the desert at night. They hide during the day and come out at the night to hunt." Allan nodded, as he didn't want to be careless. Although they were strong, this place wasn't the usual wilderness, but a restricted area without many unknown factors. It didn't take long for their eyes to get used to the darkness in the desert, and although they can't see clearly, they can still see their surroundings. Allan used in to make a circle around him covering 100 meters, just in case. Menchie asked curiously, "Allan, how far can your in reach?" Allan pondered and said, "Well, now, it can probably cover 200 meters. 200 meters is amazing, I can only cover about 50 meters. Allan was about to reply, but suddenly, he felt something moving inside his inn. The prey is here. Soon, two beasts with green eyes appeared in Allan's sight, approaching both Menchie and Allan steadily. When he saw them, Allan asked, "Wolves?" He asked because these beasts were different from the wolves he knew. They were larger and their fur was red. Menchie recognized them and said, "They are red wolves, 2 to 3 times larger than normal wolves. Their hair is red, their fangs are several times stronger than normal. They can even bite a human in half. Their sense of smell is quite developed as they can smell anything within a kilometer. Under normal circumstances, they act in pair, one male, one female." Allan wasn't afraid, but instead, he was happy. "They are so fierce, it means their meat must be delicious, right? It should be a high-grade ingredient." Menchie nodded, "Well, they are indeed quite delicious, but it's limited to their front and hind legs, everything else is average." In the eyes of a gourmet hunter, the red wolves were a level 1 target, which is the same as the red-haired pig. But if it's a pair, then their capture level will raise to 2. A beast that reached level 2, they can't be dealt with by normal people anymore, even with modern weapons. "In that case, let me deal with them, I will capture them before they can get close," Allan said. Menchie said, "You have already worked hard when we dealt with the tornado, let me do this now." Allan nodded, "Okay, you handle it, but if you can't do it fast, I will intervene. Don't underestimate this lady." Menchie snorted and then quickly rushed toward the two wolves. Suddenly, 2 short swords appeared in her hands. The left one was white, and the right one was black. Menchie was a conjuring type Nen user, and those 2 swords were manifested through her Nen. When the wolves saw Menchie rushing toward them, they immediately roared and rushed toward her. Menchie didn't dodge them, instead, she suddenly picked up her pace and, in a flash, she passed the 2 wolves. It was too fast and only a cold flash was seen in the dark desert. Turning around, Menchie looked at the 2 wolves that were only on the ground dead already. Such a powerful technique, she killed the 2 of them in a split second. Not far away, Allan admired the technique and its users. Chapter 323, The Other End of the Well. After hunting down the wolves, Allan and Menchie returned to their resting place with the food. They started a fire and Menchie proceeded to cook the meat. Menchie's short swords were both fighting weapons and kitchen utensils. After getting the meat ready, they put it on the fire to grill it. After spending the night in the desert smoothly, Allan, Menchie, and Netero set out the next morning. Their purpose was to fight the passage to the outside world, which can also be called an exit. As for the exit's location, only Menchie knew. On the way, they encountered many beasts and dangers, but they were easily resolved one by one without any accidents. After walking through the desert for 3 days, they reached an oasis. It was full of trees and shrubs almost like a forest. Both Netero and Allan held their breath from the breathtaking sight. Menchie said, "I saw Komatsu in the forest of this oasis, and the exit is inside it." "Okay, let's go in," Allan said. Afterward, the 3 proceeded into the forest. They walked in the woods and bushes and gradually went deep into the jungle. After an hour, they reached the depth of the forest. Menchie, who was walking in front of them, stopped and said, "Here, this is it." Looking in the direction Menchie was pointing at, they saw a well. Both Allan and Netero wondered why a well would appear here. Allan and Netero looked at each other and walked over. This is a dry well. Seeing the well dry as if it was abandoned for a long time and the vines around it, Allan threw a stone to see how deep the well was. But after waiting for a few minutes, he still didn't hear the sound of the stone reaching the bottom of the well. The stone seemed to disappear without making a sound. Both Netero and Allan frowned at how deep this well seemed. It's like a bottomless hole, Netero said. Allan looked at Menchi and asked, Menchi, what's going on with this well? You should know its secret, right? Menchi nodded. In fact, this well is the passage to the outside world, which is like a gate to a different dimension. As long as you enter it, you will go to another world. Hearing this, Allan and Netero were both surprised. Menchi said, I met Komatsu here at the start, and when he left, he also left through the well. Did Komatsu tell you where this well leads? Allan asked. Yes, Komatsu said this well is connected to his world, a place called Earth. 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 Hearing Menchi mention Earth, Allan's face changed and even his voice trembled. What happened to you? Menchi and Netero noticed Allan's expression and asked. Allan didn't speak, but he was thinking about what Menchi just said. As a transmigrator, he came from a place called Earth. If it was true that at the end of the well is really Earth, then he can go back home. However, Allan wasn't sure. Because Earth is just a name, other worlds can also be called Earth. By the way, Menchi, did Komatsu leave you anything to prove he was from Earth? Allan asked suddenly. He always felt that the name Komatsu was familiar but he couldn't figure out where he heard it. But he was sure that Komatsu was a character from an anime he watched. So, as long as he knew who Komatsu is, he can determine which world it really was. Menchi thought for a bit and said, I remember that when Komatsu left, he gave me a note and said that if I wanted to find him, I can open it and read it. Then Menchi took out the note and read it to Allan. The note said that he is the head chef of a 10-star hotel called Hotel Gourmet. Hearing this, Allan finally knew who Komatsu was. That's right, the Komatsu that Menchi met was Komatsu from Toriko. In other words, the world at the end of this well is Toriko's world, which is also called Earth. But it is hundreds of times larger than my Earth. Chapter 324, Passing Through to Toriko's World. If it's really Toriko's world on the other end of the well, then it's really great. Allan was excited and couldn't help looking forward to this. Although he didn't know how good the food in Toriko's world is, he thought that it should be really good as the world was full of rare ingredients. In that world, there are trees that could grow king crabs all year round. There are also super beasts that are more precious than gems. For example, the emerald dragon from the Drunken Frenzy Island releases top-class emerald wine. There is also the regal mammoth, which has meat so great that even 100 grams of it cost 5 million. The world of Toriko is very large, not inferior to the hunter's world, and it has two regions. The first is the human world, and the second is the continent that has yet to be conquered by humans. For a hunter, being able to venture into such a world is a great thing. Thinking about this, Allan already decided to go to Toriko's world. He looked at Netero and Menchi and said, let's go and see. Have you really decided? Menchi asked. Allan nodded firmly and looked at Netero, is Chairman going? Well, this old man has been here with you from the start, there is no reason to quit now, so I will accompany you to have a look now. Netero agreed. As for Menchi, she decided to go from the start. Then let's cross over, transmigrate, ... Allan said enthusiastically. Crossover. Menchi didn't understand the meaning being that word. Allan explained, it means to travel from one world to another. If there is another world at the end of the well, then we are crossing over there. After that, Allan was the first to jump into the well as his figure disappeared in an instant. Seeing this, Netero said, let's see if this well really has the ability to send people into other worlds. After that, Netero jumped as well and disappeared from view. Menchi jumped last. This well was indeed connected to another world. In the barren archipelago north of the continent, 3 uninvited guests appeared near one of the islands. These 3 were Netero, Menchi, and Allan. After jumping into the dry well, they entered a dimensional exit that led them to another world. Have we crossed successfully? Is this Earth? Menchi asked. I think we did cross over, and this should be the world where Komatsu came from, Allan said uncertainly. He wasn't sure whether they were in another world or not because they were still in the water. They were a few kilometers away from the barren archipelago. The islands are surrounded by rocks as if it was a defense mechanism against invaders, Netero said as he looked around and frowned. Moreover, as a warrior who practiced Nen for more than half his long life, he was sensitive to auras and felt some dangerous auras on the islands. At this time, Menchi said, there seems to be something in this area, we shouldn't stay for long. Allan said, in that case, let's swim to that island. Can you both manage? Don't underestimate me, I'm still confident about my power even in the water, Menchi said. Netero laughed, although I'm an old man, I can still swim more than 10 kilometers easily. Okay, let's see who can reach there first. The last one to reach there will be responsible for our food, okay? Allan said excitedly. Both Netero and Menchi didn't have a problem with this. So all of them started swimming toward the closest island in the barren archipelago. They were powerful Nen users, and 10 kilometers wasn't a problem for any of them. While they were swimming, a speedboat suddenly appeared not far away. The words Bishokumaru are written on the side of the boat, which translates as the gastro gig. A man wearing white and a yellow hat on his head with a scarred face noticed 3 people swimming not far away. Who are those 3 guys, swimming in the dangerous area beside the barren archipelago? However, he soon found that his guess was wrong. They aren't swimming, they are trying to get into the islands? Who are they? The man couldn't help being curious about them, so he directly drove his boat toward them. Chapter 325, Tom. Allan, Menchi and Netero, who were swimming toward the island, noticed the speedboat the gastro gig, but they didn't stop and continued swimming towards the island at full speed. Because they had a game going, they can't stop. This is the sense of competition that hunters should have, and they can't give up halfway. Those weird people are ignoring me. The scarred-faced man who was driving the gastro gig obviously didn't expect that he would be ignored. He couldn't help feeling a little unhappy because he planned to take the 3 of them into the boat, but at the same time, he was even more curious about their identities. Speaking of which, to be able to swim to the island at that speed, their strength and endurance was above first-class level among humans. Among the people I know, only Toriko can compare to them. Thinking of this, the scar-faced man immediately took out his mobile phone and made a call. Hey, Toriko, I found 3 interesting people who are swimming toward an island in the barren archipelago right now, would you like to come and see them? On the other end of the phone came a rough man's voice, barren archipelago? That's the territory of the Galligator. If they are ordinary people, then they are looking for death to go there. Are those 3 people like me, gourmet hunters? The scar-faced man replied, I don't know their identities, but they are definitely not ordinary people. I can feel something strong from all 3 of them, so what will you do? Feels strong? Okay, I'll go there when I have time, I'm not near there now, can you help me keep an eye on them for now, Tom? The scarred-faced man who was called Tom by Toriko said, don't worry, I will keep an eye on them before you come, Toriko. I am personally interested in the identities of the 3 of them. After finishing the call with Toriko, Tom glanced into the distance and found that Allan, Menchi and Netero had swum to the reef outside the islands in a short period of time. After crossing that reef, they will be on the island. Those 3 guys are so fast, who are they? Tom was curious, and he decided to follow. There are too many reefs on the outskirts of the barren archipelago. No matter whether the tide is rising or falling, there is only one route to pass through the reefs, and only those who are very familiar with the route can drive boats across the reefs smoothly. Tom has entered the archipelago several times. He can tell the location and number of the rocks outside, and also know the route to enter there very well. He stepped on the accelerator, turned the speedboat to the maximum speed, and drove the gastro gig towards the island at a high speed, while successfully passing the dangerous rocky reef. The entrance is flanked by mangrove trees. On the other hand, because Allan and the others swam there, the route they took was different from Tom's, but they also landed on the island smoothly. The first to arrive on the island was Netero, followed by Allan, and finally Menchi. But the difference between the 3 was only a few seconds. Allan looked at Netero and said in admiration, Chairman, even at your age, you're still really strong. If Allan used the law of space, he could easily reach this island, but he did not want that. Instead, he chose to be fair and swim with Netero and Menchi. Facts have proved that Netero, while old, is still strong, and worthy of his title as the strongest Nen user in the world. Even though he is over 100 years old, his body still maintains the vitality of a youngster. Menchi pouted and said, I lost, I will prepare the food today. Allan said, this island should have good ingredients, but now we should see if there are people on this island, and figure out where we are now. Menchi said, when we swam over just now, wasn't there a man driving a speedboat close to us? If we find that guy, we should be able to know what we want to know from him, including the information about this island. Just as they were talking, a scar-faced man in white, and with a yellow hat walked out of the woods next to them. Allan and the others could see at a glance that this man was the one who approached them in the speedboat just now. Tom was the first to speak, the three of you are very strong. You actually swam here. Allan said, if we had transportation, we would not choose to swim to the island. That would be too labor-intensive. Tom said, in other words, you are forced to do so. That's right. Allan didn't deny it. Tom said, just now, I was planning to use my gastro gig to take you for a ride, but you ignored me. Because the three of us were racing to see who can reach the island first and no one wanted to lose. Is that so? After Tom understood the reason why Allan and the others ignored him just now, he nodded, thinking that he had misunderstood them. By the way, after chatting for so long, I still don't know what your names are, Tom asked. Aren't you supposed to introduce yourself before asking someone's name, said Allan. My name is Tom, and I'm a food ingredient seller. Seeing Tom readily introducing himself, the other three also said gave their names. After learning the names of the three of them, Tom said curiously, I think the three of you are not ordinary people. Where are you from? What are you doing on this island? Allan asked back, Mr. Tom, before answering your question, can you tell us where this place is? No way, you don't know where we are now. Tom was a little surprised. Allan said, to be honest, we came from another place, so we don't know the situation here. For some reason, we appeared here, so I want to know where this place is, and I hope you can tell us. Hearing this, Tom pondered for a while and said, although I don't quite understand what you mean, it sounds like you are from a faraway place and are unfamiliar with everything here. Well, I can tell you what this place is. But, accordingly, after I tell you where this place is, you must also tell me who you are. Allan, Netero and Menchi looked at each other, then nodded. Okay, Mr. Tom, as long as you tell me where we are and promise to be our guides, we can tell you who we are and where we come from. Allan said. Good, it's a deal, Tom said cheerfully, he was really curious about their origins. Afterward, Tom told them that this was the Barren Archipelago, and they are on the southernmost island in the archipelago. Through Tom's answer, Allan finally determined that this is indeed Toriko's world. In other words, they really managed to cross into the world of Toriko. And Allan then told Tom that they were professional hunters, from the Hunter Association, who had crossed into this world through a magical dry well. After realizing this, Tom thought it was inconceivable and said, I didn't expect you to come from another world. In a way, you are indeed guests from afar. Chapter 326, Barren Tiger. As they were talking, a roar sounded from the jungle on the island. Everyone became vigilant instantly as Allan said, it's nearby. Menchi added, judging from the roar, it should be a large beast, at least 3 meters tall. A tiger-type beast most likely. Tom on the side heard Menchi's analysis and said in admiration, you can tell the size and type of the creature from the roar alone? That's so cool. After all, I'm a gourmet hunter, and I've dealt with many beasts previously. A gourmet hunter? So like Toriko? Tom said. Who is Toriko? Menchi asked curiously. A very powerful gourmet hunter, Tom responded. Menchi said, since we are colleagues, if there is a chance, I'd like to meet him. Tom replied, there will be a chance. Allan on the side heard Tom mentioning Toriko, and remembered that he was one of the 4 heavenly kings. At this moment, Netero said, it's here. Allan and the others jumped back directly as a huge beast appeared not far away from them. It was at least 5 meters tall. That's a huge-ass tiger, Allan said. Menchi said, from the fangs on both sides of its mouth, it seems to be a saber-toothed tiger, but much bigger than normal. Tom frowned as he knew this beast, this is a barren tiger, it's a level 3 capture creature, you have to be careful. It's one of the most aggressive beasts here. Allan, Netero and Menchi were very calm. If it was an ordinary person, then indeed, the barren tiger would be ferocious, but in front of the three of them, it didn't pose a threat. Allan smiled and said, "It seems today's dinner is here." Then he looked at Tom and asked, "Mr. Tom, is the tiger's meat good?" Meat? Tom was puzzled. "I mean, is the meat of the tiger delicious? Is it a high-end ingredient?" Allan asked. Tom was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, "I haven't eaten it before, but it should be quite good. Many people came here in the past to eat the meat of this tiger and only a few succeeded." Allan's eyes lit up and smiled, "Hey, that's fine, it seems like the meat of this barren tiger is quite the ingredient. It seems like today is your lucky day." Lucky day? Tom was a little puzzled before he asked, "What are you going to do?" "Of course, we will kill it and eat it," Allan said. Tom never thought that Allan wanted to eat the tiger's meat, and he couldn't help worrying, "This tiger is quite strong, so you better be careful." Allan said, "Don't worry, we only see it as a big cat actually." Cat? Tom was speechless. He didn't expect the three of them to actually think of the barren tiger, the level 3 capture creature, as a big cat. They seemed a little arrogant. Allan turned to Menchie and said, "Menchie, you handle the tiger, you lost to me and the president in the race and you need to make us dinner." "No problem." Menchie nodded. At this moment, the barren tiger raised its claws and was ready to pounce at them. Allan and Netero were unafraid. On the other hand, Tom stepped back timidly. But he still pretended to be calm. At this moment, Menchie jumped up and 2 daggers appeared in her hand. With a white light flash, Menchie appeared behind the tiger, which was already dead. Its head was severed as it collapsed to the ground. She only took 2 seconds to deal with the barren tiger. Tom sucked in a deep cold breath as he looked at Menchie in surprise. "That's really amazing, to kill the barren tiger so quickly and in a single strike." Menchie said, "Hey, I said that I'm a gourmet hunter, if I can't handle a mere beast, then how would I be a gourmet hunter?" Tom could only smile awkwardly, as he knows now that Menchie was amazing. Chapter 327, The Next Target, Galligator. As night fell, Allan, Menchie, Netero, and Tom sat in front of a fire, enjoying the barbecue of the barren tiger. The tiger was worthy of being a level 3 capture beast because its meat was a delicacy. It's not bad. The meat of the barren tiger is way better than the red-haired pig. Everyone praised the meat as they ate and enjoyed the flavor. The Toriko world was really worthy of having the best food ingredient in all animes. There was no need for a kitchen or even cooking utensils, you just need to roast the beast on fire and you have a delicacy. If they hunt for beasts with higher capture levels, then the meat will certainly be even more delicious. Just thinking about made Allan drool. He decided to stop being lazy and hunt more beasts. "Let's go inside the island tomorrow and see if there is an even more delicious beast," Allan said with his eyes glowing in excitement. Menchie said, "This island is full of resources, so we should be able to find good ingredients." Tom, who was eating the meat, gulped down a mouthful and said, "Thanks to you, I was fortunate enough to taste the barren tiger's meat, which made my trip worthwhile. If you don't mind, I will be your guide tomorrow as I'm familiar with this island." Menchie said, "We appreciate that, thanks." Allan looked at Tom and said, "Mr. Tom, your decision is wise, as long as you are our guide, you will get to eat delicious meat every day." "Then, that's settled, I'm looking forward to the food then. No one will say no to delicious food." Allan and the other 2 crossed over from another world and they were curious about this world, which made both Menchie and Netero agree to explore the island. While they were eating barbecue and talking, many beasts appeared in their surroundings. They were staring at Allan and the others hungrily, or better yet, they were staring at the meat the 4 of them were eating. "Those beasts aren't afraid of people, it seems," Allan said. "They were attracted to the smell of our food most likely," Menchie said. Netero laughed, "Interesting, even beasts can't resist the smell of delicacies. But then again, what kind of beasts are these, and why are they strangely shaped?" Allan asked. The beasts weren't from the same species, it seems. Some looked like boars, some like leopards, and others like monkeys. Tom explained, "This island has a tropical rainforest, and many beasts take that forest as their home. According to a survey, about 200,000 species reside on the island. However, most of them are not as ferocious as the barren tiger, which is extremely rare." "So, which one is the most ferocious?" Menchie asked. "The fiercest one here is a giant crocodile, called Galligator," Tom said. "Galligator?" Menchi asked as she didn't hear about this kind of beast before. But that should be normal, she wasn't from this world, so finding a beast unfamiliar wasn't because she is lacking as a gourmet hunter. Tom said, the Galligator is a giant crocodile, its level of capture is 5, much more dangerous than the Baron tiger. Hearing this, Allan laughed and said, is it the most powerful beast on the island? Its meat should be quite the catch, right? Well, that's for sure, Tom said. Okay, then it's decided, our next target is the Galligator, Allan said. Hearing Allan's words, Tom was surprised, the Galligator is really dangerous, are you sure you want to hunt it? Of course, we're not afraid of it, Allan said. Okay then. Tom didn't say much, but he already started regretting being their guide tomorrow. After all, the Galligator is a lot more dangerous than the Baron tiger. The next morning, after everyone ate breakfast, which was a weird snake that Allan took the lead to hunt, while Menchi was the one to cook it. I can't believe that this snake, which didn't look like a snake, or a frog that didn't seem like a frog is so delicious after cooking it, Allan said after taking a bite of the snake frog's leg with a happy expression. The liver part of this snake frog is quite delicious as well. Menchi praised. I have to say, the food here is really great. Netero praised as he was satisfied with the food here. After eating, they continued deeper into the jungle, searching for the Galligator. On the way, Tom said, the Galligator is a nocturnal animal, so it doesn't come out during the day. It resides in a swamp or wetlands, if you want to eat it, you need to do it during the day, or else, it will become even more dangerous during the night. Then let's go before it gets dark, Allan said. And with that, Tom led the group toward the habitat of the Galligator. Chapter 328, Long Lost Choice System. Along the way, they passed through the dense jungle and dangerous swamps. They encountered no less than 10,000 creatures. They were ferocious creatures such as swamp snakes and some types of crocodiles. After a while, Allan gained an understanding of the creatures on this island. Half of the 200,000 creatures on the barren islands were herbivorous, they weren't aggressive and could only be food for the other half. As for the omnivores, although they were aggressive, they didn't take the initiative to attack humans. Only large carnivorous beasts with only meat in their diet will attack humans. Of course, no matter how fierce the beasts were, in the eyes of Allan, Netero, and Menchi, they could only be ingredients. No matter how ferocious the beasts were, they can't pose a threat to the group. The group was attacked a few times by beasts for invading their territory, but they ended up eaten, while Menchi recorded all beasts, as it was her job as a gourmet hunter. When they passed through a swamp, a group of Baron tigers suddenly appeared. They were at least 30 to 50 tigers and each was 4 meters tall. Allan and Netero were ready to deal with them, but they soon discovered that these tigers weren't attacking them, instead, they were running away from something. These tigers look like they're running for their lives, Allan said. Menchi said, you're right, look, they seem afraid and panicked. Another beast is probably hunting them, so they had to escape. A stronger predator? The Baron tiger is one of the strongest on the island, there are only a handful of creatures here that can hunt them. Tom said. Could it be a Galligator hunting them? Allan guessed. Yes, very likely, Tom replied. At this moment, the ground shook, and immediately afterward, a huge creature appeared and moved toward Allan and the others. It was a huge crocodile. This crocodile was at least 10 times larger than the normal crocodile. There is no doubt that this is the Galligator. Well damn, that crocodile is really huge, isn't it? No wonder Baron tigers were afraid and fled in panic. Just one bite is enough to eat an entire tiger. If we were bitten, we can be stuck between its teeth. Netero said. Hearing this, Menchi rolled her eyes and said, Chairman, are you joking, or are you worrying about nothing? Netero laughed, I'm just kidding. Allan stared at the crocodile in the distance and said, I only care about whether its meat is delicious or not. Look at that guy's size, it's at least 100 years old, you have to be careful. Tom reminded. Menchi said, 100 years? That is to say, this crocodile can live past 100 years. I'm afraid so, Tom said seriously. Allan turned his head to Netero and said, Chairman, did you hear that? This giant crocodile is about the same age as you, what do you think? Netero said, I don't want to kill it, I will let you handle it. Tom heard what Allan said to Netero and exclaimed in surprise, did I hear you correctly? This old man, Netero, is already 100 years old. I'm not just 100 years old, but already past it. Tom was so shocked that he looked at Netero carefully. He couldn't believe that this energetic old man was already over 100 years old. Today, Tom witnessed with his eyes the oldest living human being in his life. At this moment, the Galligator was about 10 meters away from them. Let me do it. Menchie stood up and was ready to take action. Allan suddenly heard a familiar voice for the first time in over a year. Ding! Make a choice. 1. Personally kill the Galligator. Reward, gourmet stomach. 2. With Menchie and the others' help, kill the Galligator. Reward, devil fruit fragments. Chapter 329, Gourmet Stomach. Facing the long-lost choice system, Allan was pleasantly surprised. Obviously, the reward for killing the Galligator alone was better, so Allan directly chose the first option and said to Menchie, who was preparing for battle, "Menchie, let me do it this time." Unexpectedly, Menchie said, "No, this is my prey, I want to see how fierce this guy is." Hearing this, Allan was a bit troubled. He didn't want to argue with Menchie. The Galligator looked ferocious and all, but Menchie can handle it easily. If it wasn't for the reward, Allan would be too lazy to make a move. After all, the Galligator can't even arouse his will to fight. But if Menchie insisted on killing the crocodile, he wouldn't be able to receive the reward from the system, and this made Allan dissatisfied. At this time, the Galligator rushed at them. Its body was so huge it looked as if a hill was moving toward them. It suddenly turned around and swept its tail at them directly. Netero, Allan, and Tom immediately jumped back. And Menchie didn't want to avoid this attack, but she underestimated the Galligator's speed. Seeing the tail moving toward her, Menchie could only use her own strength to defend against it, but the Galligator's power was great. Menchie used her Nen to enhance her power, but she was still pushed back. Although she wasn't injured, Menchie had to pay attention now. The giant crocodile swept its tail again, and this time, Menchie just jumped up, avoiding the attack. Before the crocodile could turn back, Menchie grabbed its tail and slammed it to the ground. She then picked it up and started turning it around and finally threw it away. The Galligator was actually thrown far away just like that, which made Tom surprised. That's amazing. She actually threw the giant, that weighed over 10 tons, like it's nothing. Allan and Netero weren't that surprised. After all, Menchie was a Nen user. With Nen, she can increase her power greatly. After throwing the Galligator, Menchie took advantage of the situation and went after it with her daggers. She tried to decapitate the crocodile, but to her surprise, the scales on its body were very hard. The daggers slashed down but failed to take off its head. Seeing that Menchie could kill the crocodile in one go, Netero said, "Menchie, let Allan do it. I believe he can take that big guy in one move." Menchie didn't insist on fighting and stepped back and said to Allan, "Go ahead." "Well, here I go." Allan didn't take his time, he just raised his head and used the power of space to cut the huge body of the crocodile from its head. It didn't even take a few seconds and it's done. "That's amazing." Tom was shocked. Menchie was also amazed and said, "This is using air to cut." The so-called space cut was just manipulating the space and turning the air into sharp blades that can cut the target. Of course, Allan can literally cut space, but that was too much to deal with the situation at hand. After killing the crocodile, a notification appeared, "Ding! You successfully killed the Galligator on your own and received the gourmet's stomach as a reward." As soon as Allan acquired this new ability, he knew what it does. It allowed Allan to convert all the delicious food he eats into energy. The higher the grade of the food, the better the energy he receives. If this is converted into numbers, then Allan would get 0.01 energy from a bowl of rice and 0.1 energy from a chicken. If he eats 100 kilograms of meat, then he will get 10 points of energy. This energy refills his stamina generally and can also enhance the various aspects of his body, like strength and agility, and also, different ingredients had different effects. Menchie proceeded to prepare the barbecue. As Allan ate the Galligator's meat, he felt new energy pouring into his body. This was his new ability to convert food into energy. After eating, a notification appeared in front of Allan. "Ding! The Galligator's meat was great and you enjoyed it greatly. A total of 50 points of energy are transformed from the food." Allan secretly rejoiced, "Awesome, with the gourmet's stomach, I can eat delicious food and get stronger at the same time." Allan decided there and then to look for delicious food to make his body stronger. Chapter 330, New World Selection. Time flew by and 2 years passed since Allan went to Toriko's world. After 2 years, Allan, Menchi, and Netero returned to Hunter World. Everybody gained a lot from those 2 years, especially Netero, who regained his youth and strength. As for Allan, his gourmet's stomach absorbed so much food and produced energy, making his stamina and strength improve by leaps and bounds. Moreover, Allan created a new fighting style. After returning to the Hunter World, Allan stayed on Whale Island for half a year. Ding! The host has stayed in the Hunter World for more than 1,000 days and completed the survival task. Congratulations to the host for getting a new opportunity to travel to another world. Hearing this, Allan realized that he stayed here for almost 3 years. Now, he didn't have any reason to stay here anymore. Well, let's go to another world then. After this, Allan went to Mito and called Gon, Killua, Netero, and Menchi to say goodbye while also telling them that he was from another world. When they learned that Allan was from another world, they believed him directly. After learning that he was leaving this world, they all expressed their blessings and urged him to visit them if there is a chance. Just like that, Allan decided to go to another world. Ding! Make a choice. 1. Go to Naruto world next and start your adventure. Reward, Chakra cells of the Uzumaki. 2. Go to One Piece world next and start your adventure. Reward, the 6 techniques of the marine. 3. Go to Bleach world next and start your adventure. Reward, Zanpakuto, Ryuudan Jaka. After thinking about his choices, Allan made his decision. I chose to go to Naruto world. After he said this, the space around him started warping and in the next instant, Allan disappeared. Naruto world, a certain forest. Allan appeared directly in this strange place. Ding! You have successfully traveled to Naruto world and received the Uzumaki clan's chakra cells. Hearing this, Allan looked around and found himself in a forest. Although he wasn't sure where this forest is, he was sure that he is in Naruto's world after the notification. As for the reward, Allan was very satisfied. After all, when you can to Naruto's world, how can you go without chakra? However, unfortunately, he didn't know how to gather chakra. Sadly, Allan just crossed over and he didn't know how to refine chakra, which felt like you have a treasure chest but you didn't have the key to open it. There are 2 ways to unlock chakra. The first is using your talent to slowly get a feel of chakra, and with Allan's own experience with Nin, he can master it easily. The second way is to find a ninja and learn the method from him, which is easier and faster. However, Allan wasn't in a hurry to do that just yet. After all, the most important thing now is to know where he was and what time he traveled to. Only after finding those things can he start refining chakra and learning about it.